Yeah, we've got the 3 phases of facial hair going on between the 3 of us.
Really good. Yeah.
You don't want to see what happens when I try and grow stuff on this.
Right. I love it. Well, I haven't seen you since AFT, man. How you been?
Been good. Yeah, been good. Working hard, trying to grow this company, and
I continue to see. Hey, it looks like growth to me, man. From everything I see and hear. Yeah, it looks like you're doing.
Yeah, no, it really is going well. It's really going well. We'll probably be hitting over $500 million of escrow deposits in our platform by the end of the summer.
That's great.
And we just launched it last summer. So
I love it. I love it.
Crazy.
I remember that one, man. I was really excited about that whole product line. Is, you run into enough stuff and enough banks over the years, and what is maybe not a need that absolutely everybody has, you start seeing it show up, and it's like, there's a lot of folks that have that need though, and then it just goes unsolved. But
ZSuite was the one I was excited about.
Yeah.
That was the one.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you give like a
Z speech?
Rather than let him introduce you, right? Why don't you introduce yourself and do yourself a service?
So my name is Nathan Baumeister. I'm the CEO of ZSuite Technologies. I live in Austin, but our team's all over the place. And we focus on building out a digital platform to help manage some of the most complicated accounts that exist: escrow, FBO, trust, sub-accounting, for commercial clients.
It's the we've talked about this a bunch of times, but the old niches to riches.
That's right.
I love that. I mean, and that you talk about an area that especially as a community bank, really hard to find some out of the box software that's going to get you where you're trying to go for those niches. And then there's nobody that's focused on building flexible enough software like you are, right? So do you even have anything that is even considered a competitor? I mean, you're so different.
Yeah, right? So there are a couple of places that took a good swing at trying to support these types of things several decades ago. Mm-hmm. But back then when you were building technology, managing complicated workflows and being able to be flexible enough to do the types of things that are required when you're dealing with these complicated accounts, didn't really kind of automate it as much as you can now. So the large majority of banks or financial institutions that are dealing with these types of accounts, they're doing it manually, and just trying to use their different core systems and stuff like that to be able to make it work.
Yep. No, it makes sense, man. I think
I can't believe that.
Well, we've talked before. One that I really like is the property manager analogy, right? The folks with the apartment complex or something like that, taking tons and tons of checks. I mean, remember the old days, guys, where it's like, I can mail you, or I can have somebody run you down a flatbed scanner, I mean, it's just, our solutions were terrible, right? And it feels like, especially with the age of mobile and everything that we got better opportunities now.
Yeah, it's interesting because, digital transformation, it's been a long journey and we're still not done. But in a lot of ways, some of the digital transformation has been backed up just because the technology was too difficult to go after complicated things. I think that's why we saw most of it on the consumer side, because the consumer side typically had kind of less complicated needs. But then you get on the commercial side, and whether you're working with a municipality or a property manager or a law firm, a real estate developer, like each of these different businesses, they have complex workflows and payments, complex workflows and account structures, complex workflows and AP and reporting requirements and stuff like that. So, I think it's just a natural evolution that we keep kind of going down.
Well, and complex, and think about account opening for businesses. Think about things like, I don't know, whether it's some insurance policy or getting into things like wealth management, business accounts. They have complex ownership structures. They have complex legal requirements, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you get into some really interesting hierarchy in your software pretty quickly.
Well, I'm gonna give all the old guys a bad name here. Mm-hmm. So, and join in as old people.
Do it.
When you see the guy that's 21 years old that's telling you he's automated new account opening for commercial accounts, and I'm like, sure you have. You've probably never done one before, and you don't really know what you're talking about, but sure. Mm-hmm. There's a lift there, I think, for a lot of these companies, and particularly on the FinTech side, you better prove it. You had really better know your stuff and be able to do that, because there are those guys that I remember when it was done on paper. I remember when we had to do it through 4 different systems, right? And you're coming and telling me you magically solve these problems. And it does. It looks a lot like magic to some of the older guys out there. And when you can sit down at a granular level like you guys and say, this is what we've done, not necessarily on commercial new account opening, but on each of these problems that you solve with your ZSuites. It's so refreshing for me when I see people that actually know what they're talking about and they've got the X's and O's dialed in. They understand escrow, we understand trust, we understand all the different parts and pieces and necessary elements so that we can do full digital transformation on these things. It's a big deal.
Well, I mean, sitting down to build a platform, I just got that, by the way, ZSuite. I get the suite thing.
It's like
I love it. All right. So, but thinking about, and I appreciate always getting to hang out, and Nathan gives us the, the secret roadmap of what's next, right? But that's methodical, to sit down and say, hey, we're gonna build a suite, cool. And then go piece by piece because it is depth and complex, right? And I would guess, tough question, but you're probably hearing a lot now that you've got a bunch of bank partners. Are they bringing you wild and crazy ideas saying, hey,
all the time? All the time. And we love it. I mean, that's the thing, is we just absolutely love it. So, just to peel back the onion a little bit of what we built, when we spun out from a bank. So we are actually part of a product division within Leader Bank, which is a great community bank out in the Massachusetts area. And our foundational mission statement was, we want to build technology to help financial institutions compete for commercial niches. It's very specific commercial verticals. We didn't want to do the mass market approach on digital tools. And at first I was like, oh crap, man, that means I'm going to have like tons of different platforms from which to, because we had stuff for landlords and property managers. And I was like, I guess we're gonna have to build another one for law firms, and we're gonna have to build another one for municipalities and stuff like that. And that scared the crap out of me, because as a small company, that's very complex to manage. For a large company, it's complex to manage. But that's where we got super excited about the escrow and the trust accounts and the FBO accounts, because I finally saw this vision of a flexible platform that we could build, from which we could actually help manage escrow or sub accounts for property managers, for municipalities, for law firms. And I was like, man, this is the way that we're going to do it, because as a small company, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do it. If we were like, hey, we're going to take over AP processing for payroll for law firms, and then we're going to help municipalities better streamline the way that they collect water bills, like doing that type of stuff, we would have just been all over the place, and we would have, it would have died on the vine, because we just took off too many things. But nailing down a platform with a whole bunch of flexibility and configuration, but still kind of based off of the same principle, was key for us, at least.
And I understand now that it's a pretty sweet platform. I like that. Sweet platform.
Sweet.
That's a good one, man. I'm sorry. Hey, you don't get one over on me all the time, right? Okay, which reminds you.
This is killing me, man.
You got me.
You just got this.
You got me. I know. Sorry.
I thought you knew.
Years later. Okay, so we're laughing about this earlier, man. We keep having all these conversations, and I love collaborating with bunches of people, and right, you get this different perspectives. Some people are at 10,000 feet, and some people are real focused, right? And we laugh because I think the more that we've done, and probably the sharper that we've gotten, we've actually missed a lot of opportunities because we know so much about it. It scares you, right? And so sometimes that's a burden. But that concept of perspective there, right? We were having the conversation with some guys yesterday that are far smarter than we are on a topic. And we had kind of I got a dumb thought, right? How about this? Why don't you think about it this way? And everybody's like, oh my gosh. Like, you have no idea how much I get credit for being as dumb as I am, right? But it's perspective, right? And so I love that, talking about looking at a complicated problem because you understand it. And then sitting back and saying, man, if we could just build a single platform to run everything, cool. It's a good thing. It was needed.
I want to know what to do next.
Well, we're going to be doing this thing for quite a while. There's a lot to be done. It's exactly what you said, though, because I mean, every week we're on the phone with one of our clients or one of the prospective banks that we're going to work with, and they're like, have you dealt with this?
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, no, but that sounds like that's a perfect use case. And it just kind of keeps happening. So, making sure that we have a robust enough platform to be able to manage those types of things, it's going to keep us busy for quite a while. But I'll tell you, for us, the way that we built everything we've built so far, and this goes back to even when we were part of the bank, but now as we've been independent since 2019, is this concept of pulling on the thread. I'm a huge fan of just pulling on the thread. So what's the problem that I'm solving? How are you currently doing it? Why is it a pain point? And how can I help you? And you just kind of take that thread and you just keep pulling on it. The whole platform that we built. So we built the platform after we spun out from the bank. And the whole reason we built it was because myself and Aaron Coleman, our chief sales officer, and the rest of our team went out and talked to a whole bunch of banks. We were like, hey, we do these two things. Would you use it? And they're like, well, I'd kind of use this thing, but if I'm going to use this thing, you need to do this, this, and this.
Right.
And I was like, well, what do you mean? What is that? Tell me more. Right. And it got to the point where we just kept asking enough banks, tell me more. They told us what to build.
It's awesome.
Like, they're the ones that told us what to build. And then we just kept pulling on the thread. In fact, we brought 5 banks together as our development group that we got together as a group every month. And then we got together individually every month and said, here's what we built so far. What do you think? Is this going to help you? Oh, you got this wrong. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, you got this right. Oh, I never thought about this. And we just had those conversations. That's where we ended up. So I don't know exactly what's going to be next. But I got to tell you, I know exactly how we're going to do it. And we're just going to keep pulling on the thread. Just keep pulling on the thread. What's the next thing? How can I help you with this? How can I help you with this? What's the next pain point? And that's what we're going to focus on.
You jam it right there, man. I've watched so many of these companies, and this is cool of what we get to do every day. That you hear so many different companies and different aspects of their growth, and they're asking this question or that question, or you've heard so many banks talk about a particular thing. It helps us kind of leapfrog some of these guys. But what's really cool is to watch these journeys.
Yeah.
Just like you guys, when we first started talking to y'all about, hey, doing this stuff, a couple of years roll by and it's a whole new ball game. Yeah. But to your point, man, the bankers tell you what they need. Well, and I love bank born or bank.
That's what I was thinking. I love, so bank born or bank built. And this is going to sound odd, but I like having the banker side in the software company. Mm-hmm. And you just exhibited it, man. You don't even know it about yourself, but you're so genuine and humble and honest. And look, that is so missing in community banking right now. I mean, there's never been a time of more misinformation and BS and threats and all the other stuff that's going on, right? It's a difficult time, but community bankers are the good guys, right? These are super honorable and trustworthy people. And I think they want to have that relationship. But when you think about your average software company, probably walking in to sell a bank something, they would never say something like, they're going to listen to the banker and we're going to collaborate, right? They feel like they need to be there to be,
right,
the guy with all the answers.
We're going to pull on the thread, and it's like, no, we're going to tell you everything.
And I love it because we've noticed for years when you have that, even if it's just having a banker in senior leadership at a software company, right? That culture is just more open, it's honest, it's collaborative. And I think I know I feel this way. I trust it. I mean, I trust you more than a heck of a lot of folks, right? But getting people to be open and honest, I think everybody can work together and solve problems, and we've seen it over years. I think we all just forgot that somewhere.
Well, the whole bank porn product thing, I'll tell you right now, there isn't a banker in the world that doesn't sit down and look at a Encino from Live Oak or this or that or Banker's Lender, where you're going to be looking at this thing saying a banker actually built this. He probably knows this reg. He probably knows this issue. And this is where nothing against California, but when the kids from California come that know everything except how to shave, they haven't got that far yet. It's because they haven't grown up there. They're only 16.
Right.
But then you walk in and tell the banker everything that you know and not ask him anything.
Right.
It's kind of scary.
It's been a clash.
But this bank born, I mean, it's a class of its own. And we actually have been pounding the table for years about bank born products, the benefit of a bank born product. And I mean, if I were you guys, I would be leading with that every bank we go into. We're a bank born product because the bankers get that. They understand the difference. And here's the best part. Man, you're like an icon.
You're a hero, man. Yeah.
Because it's like you're one of us that actually did something, right?
That's a
neat thing to be.
Yeah. it's a great story, and it's funny because we, obviously we share it all over the place, and to us it doesn't seem that unique, but it's funny because it is so unique. And that's the other thing that I've just been super humbled by. How there's certain banks that get it,
Yes.
like like they know how to innovate, and they're making progress. And we have the huge blessing of working with a lot of those types of banks, which is really, really cool. But when I talk to them, I'm like, you're different, right? I'm like, no, I'm not different. Like, I'm not doing anything special. Like, no, you don't understand. Like, you're doing something special. And it's cool to be able to talk to them about those types of things, because they don't really realize how unique it is when they're doing the same thing, right? Hubris exists on both sides.
Yeah.
There is absolutely way too much hubris on the technology software side of folks that are jumping into fintech that's going to focus on the banking technology infrastructure, that come in and think they're going to fix the problems and they're going to tell the bankers how to fix it, right? It's like, dude, slow your roll.
Right. Complicated problems.
Slow your roll.
Yeah.
But then on the bank side, you have similar hubris. We've been running the banks. We've been doing this for the last, however many decades, and look at our numbers. We're great. Like, why do we need to change anything or do things differently?
Overdraft fees, we make a bunch of money on those things. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Hey, I
So-
heard something like 8 of the top 10 banks have either dropped or announced they're going to drop overdraft. Oof, that's going to be a shockwave.
That will be a shockwave. Non-interest income. It's gonna be a huge change there. So driving towards the openness of
Mhm.
all of us just getting past our hubris and getting to just asking questions on, what do we need to do? Like, what are the problems that we're trying to solve? How can we solve it in unique ways? How can we help our clients, on the commercial side, run their businesses better, and on the consumer side, how to be able to help their lives be better in whatever way we can. And if we all work together, because we all bring a unique perspective. That's one thing that we found, spinning out from a bank. The bank, quite frankly, struggled building a SaaS platform, a SaaS technology platform, because that's not what they do every day. Right. So there was unique expertise that we brought in as technologists, but as technologists, there was also deep experience that we didn't know of the pain points and the certain regulations and all those types of things that help us every day. And we're super excited to be able to say, like, on our leadership team, we have a ex bank president on our leadership team. She's our chief client officer. Our chief operating officer is, a bank leader at the bank that we spun out from. And then we have a bunch of technologists too, right? And it's just a great blend to work together.
So when you create something cool that's on the commercial side, which is where the bucks are at for the bankers, right? And they're in tune with that. And you create a product that is, let's say, what's the word, sticky?
Yeah. That,
hey man, these guys are in, and they're so in. I'm not saying can't get off your software. I'm just saying, why would you want to, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you're satisfying these people at a level with the things that you're able to do. And we're talking about a diverse group of merchants here. It's not just apartments or lawyers there's a bunch of different things, suites, right?
Yeah.
And being able to serve at that level is fantastic for the new, new business you can bring in.
We
your
all know
bank.
community banks have to win there.
But you can also hold on to that business much harder.
Community banks have always won on small business. And if everybody hadn't been watching, the threats are mounting, right? There's a wave of new competition. I think you made a great point. The challenger side, the fintech side, they made their fight in consumer, right? And look, it's definitely an easier line of business. We all know that. I'd rather build a consumer product. Now they've kind of got done competing there. There's more to come, I'm sure, but the easy stuff is done. They didn't exactly take over the world and kill all the banks like they thought they would, right? And so now you see a lot of them shifting into the business landscape. That's a pretty interesting concern to think about. So, we got to do the same.
Well, then likewise, you guys have great products, so we're not hurting on that side right now.
Yeah.
And the true fintechs out there are they're shooting for somewhere in the middle, embedded finance and things like that, where, a platform, it doesn't matter what product you're buying. You can employ buy now, pay later at the checkout standard, things like that, or whether it's a Stripe, putting something on the front end of this deal at a website. and then you come along with your product suite for the bankers, and it's like, oh, thank goodness. Like, now we're advancing on this side as well. And that's really what we call the difference between FI FinTech versus FinTech, where you guys would be a prim, and FI FinTech has really done well. I could list off a dozen companies that have done really well in the last few years.
It's starting to be a good time, I think. I mean, look, we all know the Coors went on a buying spree for like 55 years, something like that. So that ate up a lot of the independent little companies, right? But we've had a pretty good cycle the last 5, 8, 10 years of new companies starting up and good funding and everything. And so, look, good Nathan, we're getting cool stuff, man. And we got cool people on the team building stuff for community banks. So I think it's a good time too.
I totally agree. And I think the threat that all of us see on the consumer side, like you said, is moving to the commercial side. It's going to start with small businesses because small businesses act more like consumers than the medium and large businesses, but it's going to go across the board. The problem that you're seeing is that every single niche of every vertical you can think of on the commercial side, there's at least one SaaS player, but more often than not, multiple SaaS players that are building software to help them manage their business.
Right.
And right now it's focusing on accounting. Sometimes it's on, paying bills, might be focused on CRM, or it might be an enterprise suite that kind of does it all. But with, more banking as a service type things out there, these SaaS companies are actively looking to embed those banking products directly into their enterprise software. Obviously, that creates an opportunity. I know y'all talk about this all the time, and I think it definitely is a huge opportunity for those banks that can figure out how to be behind the scenes and powering those things. There's a huge opportunity there, but it's a two-sided coin because you get behind the scenes, you don't get the share of the profit, right? You don't get as large of a share of a profit. It becomes an infrastructure play. And one of the places that we're focusing on, I know we're not the only ones, Autobooks comes to mind, where we're trying to say, look, those SaaS offerings that these other companies are building to help these businesses run their day-to-day operations, why don't you offer that?
Yes.
Why don't you as the bank integrate that as part of your offering? Or let's be offensive about this, not defensive, and say, hey, look, you're using that software platform? No problem. We can connect to it via APIs. Yes. Oh, you're using that software platform? Don't worry. We've already done it with 5 other, clients in your particular area. We already have seamless connections there. And, being on our toes as bankers, putting myself in the shoes of our clients to figure out how to stay on top of those things. It's going to be huge. And it's going to be huge for us too, right? As technology providers to make that happen and make it work.
Well, something really grabs me. We all talk a lot about, competitive pressure and what the landscape looks like. And if you think about it from the consumer side for a community bank, it's not so much, I think community banks think a lot about what products to deliver and keeping customers happy and sticky and all the words that we all know, right? And the KPIs that we use. But you don't think a lot about how difficult it has traditionally been for a non-bank or a non-charter to offer financial services to a consumer. Walmart buying, one FinTech? Walmart buying a FinTech and taking that to all of their employees. That couldn't have happened 10 or 12 years ago. Now it can. So it's not really a product fight. It's sort of a shifting landscape where it's you can't blame the banks, right? It's more about it. It got easier for everybody else to participate in your line of business. But on the business side is still very complicated, and there's a heck of a lot more IP there too. And the bankers have that IP.
Yeah, cool thing that I think we do with Bass Banks every day with the Bass Association and the other things that we do, and helping bankers create and become a Bass Bank. And one of the things that you get to question the silly stuff like, how do I find a FinTech? And I think
they're camped in your parking lot.
Yeah, they're probably covering your door.
Read my resume.
But it's really cool when we begin to talk to these guys about, you can learn from FinTech. So you may find something they're doing and sit around and go, we can do that. I bet you $1. We can
People
do
gave
that.
them a fortune to go play around like a science lab, the
That's
big
it, man.
experiment and see what sticks,
Yeah, and then somebody comes along and says, I can build something like Nathan, or I should say someone like Nathan comes along and says, look what we built.
Yeah.
And that's really the opportunity zone here, is let these guys do what they do best. And maybe there's some things that they come up with that maybe a bank-born product can do better.
Yeah.
And we all learn from it. We all get better. We all serve the customer better. And there's one guy that suffers every time. It's the big banks.
Right.
Pow.
Awesome.
And that's a good thing, right?
Hey, one last thing, Nathan. Will you talk a little bit about AFT? You got elected to the board, woohoo, which is super cool. And look, I know we've all been a part of that organization for a long time, and we all have a lot of love and respect for AFT. So do you want to talk a little bit about what's been going on there and what AFT is all about? And maybe tell the bankers a bit of what we all do there when all of the technology people all get together,
yeah,
right?
It's a secret meeting.
Yeah, how we try and work together on their
So we're not talking about the belly flops into the fountain, right?
That doesn't count. That didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
I wasn't even there.
No, Association from Financial Technology, and y'all have been a part of it forever. I've been a part of it for a long time too. From a banker perspective, what would I wish that like my clients would know, or the bankers that we work with?
Mhm.
I think it's important for them to know that there is a group of people that are committed to serving this industry and committed to doing it in a way that makes it sustainable and where it can thrive and grow. And at AFT, we don't invite bankers. It's just us technologists to come together to have very frank and honest and open discussions on what we can collectively do better to help the industry move forward. And I got to tell you, it's been transformational. It's been transformational for ZSuite Technologies to grow and do the stuff that we've been able to do. And I know many, many other companies that would say the exact same thing. And so as you look at the innovation that's happening in the banking industry, especially on the technology side, there's a lot of it that you can attribute to conversations that go on twice a year when we get together for those summits, based off of the friendships that are built and the conversations that we have. And so, I love being part of the organization. I love everything that it's done for my company, for my career, but more importantly, I just really do believe that it's helped to move the industry forward in meaningful ways, and will continue to do so. And it's just a group of good people just trying to do good things for this industry.
Well, and it's technology companies that are not trying to advance technology that destroys banking. It's advancing technology that promotes and helps banking. And that's when we talk about FinTech and FI FinTech. This is FI FinTech playground.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to see cool partnerships or things that can reduce cost, or sometimes acquiring two things that make the sum of the parts are greater than the whole. A lot of times it's just really neat ideas where someone, maybe it's a big player that has been entrenched in a mindset for a long time, and enough of the other players are saying, see what could happen if you let us play in your area a little bit. And that's led to like open banking. People are talking about that a lot, and that's, I think, where a lot of that came from.
It absolutely has. If you wanted to be a fly on the wall, decade or more ago, look, all the conversations haven't been pleasant at AFT. And there's really good pointed conversations about questions like, hey, how are we going to actually work together to move things forward if all of us have closed off systems and we don't share anything with anybody?
They used to have a section that was kind of like a controlled fight.
Yeah.
Until we started having to have medics and nurses and stuff, and then it was like, okay, not so.
No, they do things like, let's get all of these competitors in one room, right, and just lock the door and see what happens. Right? But it's good practice.
Some hair raising arguments in there.
You're gonna move the needle. We may not all live through the thing,
Yeah. And the needle, but the cool thing is the needle's been moved. Like that's the great thing. As I'm having discussions now with figuring out how to partner and work with all these different cores and digital banking providers, the ecosystem is completely different than it was a decade ago. And the speed of which a company like mine can actually do the things that we, a decade ago, it would have taken years. And now it's like, oh no, here's our API docs. Wait,
I
what?
told him,
Wait, that's it? Like, that's it?
we were hanging out fishing this weekend, and I told him, I'm like, you realize I spent years and years in partnerships with thousands of pages of partner agreements and negotiated and wrote APIs everywhere, right? And all of that could probably have been done, in a handful of weeks these days, right?
There's my favorite
That is a
part.
huge shift.
When the new guys come along and they're like, yeah, these APIs, and then I'm like, you should have been here a decade ago.
Yeah,
Man.
we used to have to
This is
mail.
great.
We used to have to mail things, and I mail it, overnight it to the other bank. Can I get the account
The
balance?
Pony Express, right?
Yeah, smoke signals, man. It wasn't that long ago.
It's come far.
It wasn't that long ago.
That's a good place to cap, guys. I mean, you feel like we do. This is the most exciting time. There's more good stuff going on. Every community banker I talk to, that's my perspective. I'm like, dude, I wish I had your charter, man. I could play with so many fun things. It's an inspiring and exciting time, and there's super good stuff coming to the market to play with. There's a lot of opportunity.
Well, and there was an era, a month or two there, I'm winking at you, where people were saying community banks are done. Even the technology guys like, it's over, man, right? And that narrative is 100% spun around in the last year, where everybody's going, hang on, what does banking as a service thing?
Yeah.
New game. What are these APIs we're talking about? What's happening here? Okay, now the game on for real, and everybody's starting to understand that this is the distribution model for technology. It's where it really belongs on the financial side, is through the banks, not around them.
Final thoughts on the spot.
Final thought. Well, I'm just going to go off of what
Anything
you just
you
said.
want. It could be about NASCAR. I don't care.
Yeah. I'll talk about my favorite topic that everybody always knows about: complex adaptive systems theory. Right?
I talk about that all the time.
Yeah, all the time, right? So here's the deal. And this is why I bring it up, because it goes exactly to what you were just sharing. One thing that's been proven is for very complex systems to be able to change rapidly when things change to survive is, how do you make sure that happens? I think we could all agree, we all live in the United States, but we could pick any country, but we live here. It's a complex system. Financially, with the government, the economy, all these different types of things. And you better believe a whole bunch of stuff is happening. And if we can't adapt quickly to survive, then we're not going to be able to, fulfill all of the things that we want to fulfill kind of here within this country. And one of the thing, whether you like it or not, you can hate it, but whether you like it or not, the thing that drives this economy is capital. It's cash, it's money. And the fact that we have this disparate network of all these individual financial institutions all throughout the United States that can make their own decisions on how to distribute capital is the definition of how complex adaptive systems actually do work. It's that you delegate the decision-making power as far down the system as you can possibly do. You give them very simple principles to follow, and when they follow those principles, that's how you can adapt. And so I'm all in. I'm all in when it comes to our financial system. And I just love being able to support it through ZSuite, through AFT, through my own personal things that I do as well. But I'm just a believer.
I love it. Access to capital, baby. I love it.
Competition too.
You win. You get my brownie point for like maybe even the whole month. That was awesome.
You get the Tenor Mail Hero
You
Award.
bet, man. Hey, we appreciate you so much. You're really awesome. Thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, Dave Tanner, was great catching up.
All right. Thanks for riding with the Cowboys.
See you next time.
Yep. See ya.